Hi, Peter Rounds, Figure Transformation, and what we're going to do today is a back and shoulders workout. So for those of you who have a TRX, we're going to start with a lat pull, sitting all the way down, and then pulling up. Okay, we can go palms in or palms out. Make sure you're working that scapular retraction and getting the arms out of the shoulder complex. For those of you who maybe don't have a TRX, we're going to use the resistance bands. We're going to hinge over, and we're going to pull. Big key here, just like anything, is to be careful of your head. Your head should remain in neutral position. And again, just like if I was in the gym, I'm doing a lat pull, I'm pulling down and in. So this is a kind of exercise I came up with today to help people who maybe don't have access to the gym or exercising from home and are trying to get the angle that you want when doing a lat pull. And it's a little bit harder in some ways just because it's the angle in space. You want to try and get your back as flat as you can. So the next thing we're going to do is kind of a front delt raise, but we're going to come all the way up with this movement pattern. So make sure you're using a light enough weight. You're using dumbbells. So here, I'm going to come all the way up. And I'm going to drive out of my shoulder socket, put it back down and down. Again, big thing here, you gotta watch the head. A lot of people struggle with this, especially getting the weight to drive up, okay? I've noticed it all too often, more and more. So again, you really don't want a heavy weight with this. Going from the side angle, coming straight up. Now I'm lifting out of my shoulder socket, coming back down, decelerating with my lats. Accelerating with my deltoids, driving up, down, stabilize. There we go. Repeat that again. Now you can do this one at a time too if you want. Okay, so we're coming up, drive it out, down, one. And if you have a hard time, don't force it all the way back. Maybe get here. That's fine. Drive it up a little bit. Make sure you pack the shoulder on the way down. Okay, this side. Maybe they only get here. Drive it up, down. Just take heed of where your range of motion is, what your head is doing. Also kind of holding the weight. Should be parallel to the floor, parallel to the floor, parallel to the floor. Unless you're out here, then it stays at that slight angle, 45. Anywhere between 10 to 15. If you want to go as high as 20 on the reps, you can. So we're going to come back to the lat pull. I'll do this one with the TRX. Now I got a cable machine here too, so if you're at the gym, you have that option. And what I would do is, if I was at the gym, is I would take my dumbbells with me if I was over at a lat pull machine and just kind of do my exercise right after. So that way you don't got to kind of worry about somebody stealing the equipment or whatnot if you walk away. There's always an alternative exercise kind of for everything. And that's why I'm even kind of demonstrating with different ways of doing things. The key is, especially again at home, so I'm just demonstrating this again, you don't have to do it on the lat pull, is making sure you just get all your movement patterns. And I realized for a few years that I was missing some of my key movements and not getting big enough movements with my shoulder blades, shoulder complex. So if we have access to battle ropes, we're going to come all the way up and down. What I'm trying to do here is I come up, I'm trying to lift, but I'm trying to make sure it stays in my back. That's what I pull back down with. Front delts, lats. Front delts, lats. And that's why we're pairing shoulders and back together. Very similar to chest, they work kind of synergistically, if you will. Okay, so I'm up, down. I can run it with a snap. Or I can run a little snap. Good thing with the ropes too, it becomes like a whole body because you can start to bring your legs into the movement pattern as well. We're going to go back to the lat pulls. So again, I'm sitting all the way down. Just kind of, again, even sometimes I kind of sit at the bottom with my shoulders out of the socket, if you will. And then I pull. Now again, you're going to need some leg activation here. Unless you have access again to like a pull-up bar or something. You want to do it that way. And I breathe. In on the way down, out on the way up. In, out. Breathing is huge. I think a lot of people kind of miss that. They don't always know when to time their breathing. Go back to the shoulder. Same thing, I'm coming all the way up, out of the socket, back down, core tight, slight bend in the knees, try to keep the back as straight as you can, head in neutral. Don't rush, coming up and just let it go. See that all too often in the gym or when people are exercising. Downward motion is almost more important than the upward. We can always achieve getting the weight up there somehow. The important part is how we're doing that. You feel my lats starting to fatigue out on that, coming down. That's what you're kind of looking for. Again, it's these big movement patterns. So we're going to switch our movement pattern. We're going to go into, we'll keep the TRX in. So we're going to go to the row. And kind of lean back, if you will. And pull. So I can also do this with a bent over row. We don't have access to a TRX. The other way I can do it with resistance band. And same thing, kind of working that row. Any one of them work. Good thing with the TRX too is you have to play around with your angles a little bit. Now I could be all the way back too. Right? I'm just kind of keeping it at the shortened length. Big motion, big motion. So we're going to go into laterals, coming out to the sides. The hard part with this, I realize for a lot of people, the middle delta is kind of almost overworked in a lot of ways because of the angle that sometimes it might be taking in the shoulder complex. So I'm going to do this one with 2. Last time I did this one, I showed it with 1. So we're coming in front, we're coming out to the sides. Back down. Now I'm trying to extend my arm out of my socket as best I can. Extend it out. It's not so important. I see a lot of people trying to focus on the up motion. Now that's all right if we're doing an upright row. But we're coming out to the sides. Out to the sides. Again, I'm reaching as far as I can. Strong legs. If you'll notice, slightly getting my shoulders forward. I used to realize that following this, I got them back too much for too long. While that's important depending on the movement we're doing, the big thing is to keep these shoulders moving. All right, so we're going to go back into the row. I'll do a bent over row. I'll stay light. I should be using a heavier weight, but just to show you. So weights, it's important how you carry them or how you hold them. All too often people kind of do this. Okay, this is going to be on my forearm. When I have a slight bend in the elbow. hinge over, get back as flat as I can, and squeeze. And I'm making a circular motion when I do this. Over exaggerating. Make sure your elbows don't come outside your hands. Okay, so they don't want to be out here. So if I'm doing a high row here, doing a low row here. Decelerate nice and slow. Now you can do this again with one arm. You could alternate the movement pattern. You could just stay all one side for time constraints. I'm sticking out of the two for now. So that was instead of my TRX row. I'm going to go back to the laterals. This one I'm going to use the ropes on, so I can make circles. Do this, my laterals. So I come basically. Reverse that direction. Hard part with the ropes is the wrist. Once you kind of get the wrist, and that's where kind of martial arts helps a little bit. Once you get that down, it makes it much easier. If you wanted to as well, you could throw in a core exercise. Pause the video and just do a third exercise as well. I'm gonna save that for the end. All right, come back to the row. Now, mind you too, like a lot of people, maybe not, they'd actually taken some time off from exercising because I wasn't happy with my movement patterns, and I realized they were getting worse and worse. And so finally I'm happy enough with the work I've been doing with percussion therapy, and I understand again exactly what happens to the body over time, which muscles tighten, how they change the movement patterns, and I think that's huge and important for many different reasons. So that's even why I'm not quite doing my legs as much as I would like. So I've got to get this hip into a better place and lengthen my hamstrings before I kind of do that. My upper body, a little bit easier, a little bit different than the lower. So I'm going to go back to the dumbbells and laterals. Now I could, if I wanted to, and just gotta be careful when you do this, flying out. This brings in more traps though, okay? So if you're working middle delts, you wanna stay about barrel. If I wanna bring in my traps, and I'm gonna come up a little bit higher. Again, big thing with all this, head, okay? Head's gotta stay in neutral. And if it's not, then you might want to kind of lower the weight, work on stabilizing, or work on loosening up kind of your upper body, traps, chest area to promote better movement pattern there. All right, so we're going to go one arm on this one. I'll stick it behind the row. So here, I'm pulling. Core tight. Different ways that could reach. Pull. Reach. Pull. So even though I'm not specifically targeting my legs, I'm still working on cycling in other ways. Now this exercise is harder. So I only recommend like 6 to 10. Now another way to do this would be with a dumbbell. Okay, hinged over, row 1, 2. The thing with one arm is it starts to bring in your hips more. We'll do it on the next one, or on the dumbbells. just so you can see. Follow along. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, I'm letting that shoulder out of the socket. Reach. Retract. Roll it down, down, out. Pull. Head follows where I'm going to with this. Okay, very similar like martial arts. So from here, I'm looking at where my hand is going, following, following. You pull. All right, I'm gonna give you options here. So we're gonna do an upright row. For those of you who have good range of motion with this, for those who might struggle a little bit more, we're gonna go with a curl to press. So, sticking with the lighter weights is what I brought over today, but so upright row, it's a really hard movement pattern for a lot of people. You gotta round your shoulders out and come up and in. And again, I wanna make sure my hands stay in a neutral position. A lot of times when people get to the top, they start to kind of curl. So if you have trouble with that one, we're gonna go bicep curl, overhead press. Down, down, up, up, down, down. You could do this with a barbell too, so you like a clean press. Okay, dumbbell. Oh, one arm row. All right, so one arm row. So, I'm going to square off. Hinge over, elbow to hip. So it'd be just like if I was doing a cable row, same motion pattern, working on that scapular retraction, let it out of my socket, and then pull. Okay, aside real quick. I'm going to do the TRX one just because, again, I didn't bring heavier dumbbells over here with me. I should have. But it's not so much about the weight. It's more about the mechanics and how we're doing it, so that's why I don't really care too much about the weight that I'm using. I'm working those ranges of motion. I'm also kind of just getting back into things here, if you will. This way too, it tracks all my progress. If I've done any workouts besides riding a bicycle outside of what I've recorded. So I'm just recording all my videos now, my training sessions. So this could be just for somebody who's just starting out or somebody who's more advanced. I'm trying to give as much variety as I can. Okay, upright rows or another press. Okay, so upright row, clean, bicep, overhead, bicep, overhead. What I care more about is that deceleration, regardless if I'm doing an upright row, a bicep, an overhead, or even a clean press. Clean press is a little bit more explosive. Okay, I am focusing, I should say, more on the drive, down, down. So that one I'm just kind of forcing myself to slow it down. I realize the importance of that exercise, but also the importance of being able to do it well. It's not an easy movement pattern, I should say, to teach. Great one to learn when you're younger. You want to make sure you're getting good movement pattern. And that's why I get variety of exercises depending on skill level, because that's the most important part, I think, when exercising is form, technique, understanding what you're exercising, what you're doing, and not just kind of doing it for the sake of doing it. So, you know, all these ones, even though I'm kind of winging it, playing it by ear here, they're all geared towards opening up the shoulder complex and getting it moving more and facilitating good movement patterns. And they're not just kind of something done at random, so everything I always do is done for a specific reason and why. It would vary for clients depending on what they're looking for. All right, so we got 3. I got one more shoulder. One more shoulder. Okay, so we're doing 3 sets. Doing a total of 9 exercises. You could do 12 if you wanted. I used to do 12 a lot. Actually, what maybe I will do is some forearm exercises, which is something I all too often kind of skipped and missed for years. And it's good, or rotator cuffs. All right, so we did now. All right, so I'm going to go rear delt fly, kind of bent over. I'll show you how to do it with the TRX as well. You do it with a resistance band as well. And you could have done this too. It would have been a little bit harder. I would have got one arm if I did this with a resistance band. Okay, so I would have gone here, and then up. That's the hard part with the band. Okay, so maybe I would have just ran this. Or I would have ran upright row. Actually, I would want that crossed over my body. There we go. So that's what I would have done, sorry. Forgot to include the resistance band. I did it that way. Same thing with the resistance band for the rear delt. You could have done it with a lateral delt too. I should show you that as well. So here's rear delt. It's kind of like a row. It's like a high row if you will. Okay, the hand positioning is just changed. More back, more shoulders. Back, shoulders. Still hits the back regardless of how you flip it. So TRX, kind of again, same thing. We're going to be here and pulling apart. Now, just because I haven't lengthened this, I'm going to run this angle. I will advise these angles are harder for a lot of people because you got to make sure your core is tight, and we're making sure it stays kind of flat. Because also often with a TRX, depending on how I move or change, it changes the exercises altogether. So you got to be really conscious of your angles. Angles are the most important thing in exercise, in my opinion. Rear delts with the dumbbells. All right, I show this one in a different video. So 2 ways: I can come here, or I can flip my grip. When I'm doing this, I'm coming way out as far as I can. Okay, this is a hard exercise. I realize in a lot of ways, because a lot of people really tighten that rear delt, you got to think of it. Anything you do moving your arm brings in the rear deltoid. It attaches to the scapula. And there's a reason why a lot of people have a hard time with kind of these specific movements, and why the rear delt kind of maybe get overworked and kind of gets them tight, a little bit too tight. All right. The rear delt, that one. One other back exercise. I did the lap. Oh, I did that. Actually, shoot, I already did do 3. Pretty space, that was an exercise, huh? All right, so rear delt fly will actually hit both. And then, you know, what I'll do is throw in, I'm gonna throw in wrist curls. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna come up and flare. And my wrist stays in neutral. Curl down. Move both. Running both is not easy, okay? So you can do alternate if you so choose. Or you can just run on one side and then the other. Just for time purposes, I'm going to do both. So I curl under, I come up, and almost like a paint the fence, if you will. This is Miyagi. Does work the biceps too. Okay, long, red one. Rear delt fly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, watch the head. 6, 7. Okay, paint the fence. Thumbs on the same side, coming up. Pressures in the pointer finger. Right, it's really important too for a lot of people. This is why hand strength diminishes over time. For a lot of people, they take these kind of funky grips when they're holding it. Now my pressure's on the outside. Okay, we're stronger on the inside, but all too often the angle that we take will all too often alter an exercise or change it completely. And sometimes, you know, that's a hard thing to fix. That's why I kind of use what I call like the open palm grip, okay? Forces people to have to generate force more from the upper body, as opposed to if I'm taking that cross grip, now I'm pulling from my hand, all right? And that makes all the difference. The hand, this is just an attachment of here, depending on the exercise that we're trying to do. So obviously here, this is for the forearm. But when I'm doing a rear delt fly, I'm making sure the movement's coming from my shoulders. Lastly, it travels through the hand. Very similar to martial arts. I'm moving from my shoulder, and then it goes to my hand. Force comes from hips. All right, and over. Now, same thing here, letting my shoulders out of my socket. Reach as far as I can. Dumbbell curl. Forearm. Core tight. And I should throw this out there too. For those of you looking for posture, we got to be careful of locking the knees and keeping the weight back. We want to make sure we stay on the balls of our feet. We're kind of pushing our weight into our heels, kind of leaning forward a little bit, if you will. So you're going to feel like your core is getting engaged. I used to all too often when I would exercise, I realized I would kind of sit with my weight back. And that's what we're doing in everyday life. So I want to make sure I'm promoting something better when I exercise so I can gain more out of it. So the whole reason, in my opinion, you know, I exercise and we should exercise is so that we move better throughout our daily life. It's not just a run through the motions. You know, because we all assume that our body is doing what it's supposed to. We all too often don't realize our body tries to find the easiest way to do something, and especially when we do something over and over and over again, that subconscious just kicks in, and it's hard to kind of sometimes realize that. So this is why we all want to make sure that we're present when we're exercising, and it's often throughout the day present with our posture, even if we're working and whatnot. I fell into the same traps as everybody, and this is why I understand them, is the little things matter and the little things count. All right, hope you found this video helpful. Until the next time, thank you.